I kept telling myself it was just jealousy and imagination. Until I saw the truth with my own eyes. Jason and I were one of those couples people like to describe with words like solid and lucky. Lived in a 2-bedroom in Brooklyn, took turns cooking, argued about the thermostat like clockwork in October. We had our routines, coffee together on Sundays, date night Thursdays, a shared Spotify playlist called Us, which we updated more out of habit than need. Then came the company event. It was one of those rooftop things, full of string lights and catered sliders, the kind of place where everyone dressed like they had something to prove. Jason's firm was a mid-sized tech consultancy. I'd never gone to one of his work events before, and to be honest, I only went this time because he'd asked twice, which he never did. Said it would mean a lot. I wore a dark green dress I hadn't touched since our anniversary last year. He said I looked amazing, kissed my shoulder, and for a moment I believed everything was as good as it used to be. The first time I saw her, Clara, she was laughing at something Jason said. Not a polite office laugh, not the kind of laugh you save for your boss or someone's joke that doesn't quite land. This was easy, intimate, natural. Like something shared. Her hand was on his forearm, just briefly, but I noticed. The second thing I noticed was how quickly Jason turned when he saw me looking. Oh, this is Clara. Clara, my wife, Emily. The way he said wife, it came out clipped, almost like a correction. Clara smiled at me, friendly but polished. Her lipstick was perfect. Everything about her was. It's so good to finally meet you, she said, as if we'd been on opposite sides of some invisible fence for years. The rest of the night blurred. I made small talk, drank half a glass of wine I didn't want, and watched Clara out of the corner of my eye. The way she leaned in when Jason spoke. The way he kept glancing her way when he thought I wasn't looking. The kind of body language that told me I was watching something that had already begun. Later, in the Uber, Jason was quiet. I asked him how long he'd been working with Clara. A couple months, he said, too fast. She's on the DevOps side, we collaborate on a few projects. Funny you never mentioned her. Didn't think it mattered. That stung, more than I let on. I didn't push. I looked out the window, watched the city smear past in streaks of light, and told myself I was being ridiculous. Office chemistry isn't a crime. People click. It doesn't mean anything. But something was already shifting. I could feel it, like a storm far off you can smell before you see the clouds. The next morning, Jason left early. Clara had roped him into a client pitch, he said, voice breezy but his eyes didn't meet mine. I nodded, kissed his cheek, and watched him leave. And then I sat on the edge of our bed, in the silence he left behind, wondering why the air suddenly felt thinner. It wasn't just that I didn't trust Clara. It was that I didn't recognize the way Jason smiled when he talked about her. Like it belonged to someone else. Someone I hadn't met yet. The following week, Jason was different. Not in big, dramatic ways, nothing you could point to and say, see, this is proof. No, it was in the pauses. The slow fade of habits we never thought twice about. He stopped leaving his phone on the nightstand. Started taking calls in the hallway. He still kissed me goodnight, but the kisses were automatic. Hollow. Like someone clocking out. I asked him about the upcoming trip on a Tuesday night while we were washing dishes. He'd mentioned it in passing before, a 2-day client retreat upstate. You'll be gone Friday through Sunday? He nodded, eyes on a wine glass he was drying too carefully. Yeah. Big push with one of our partners. Clara and I are presenting the integration plan. He said her name without blinking. That bothered me more than if he'd flinched. I forced a smile. Sounds important. It is. He looked at me then, really looked. You okay? Of course. I shrugged. Just don't forget to bring a jacket. You always underestimate how cold it gets up there. We smiled at each other. The kind of married smile people practice. But that night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how easy it was to lie when the lie was wrapped in routine. The day before he left, I was scrolling on my phone during lunch, killing time between meetings, when I saw it. Clara's Instagram. I'd never looked her up before, didn't want to feed the feeling. But curiosity is a quiet drug. Her profile was what you'd expect. Glossy shots of rooftop brunches, gym selfies, sunsets from various cities. But what caught me off guard wasn't her. It was Jason, in the background of a story, laughing over drinks with her and another coworker. They were close. Too close. His hand resting casually on the back of her chair. The kind of closeness you don't stumble into. You arrive at it. It was tagged a week before the rooftop event. He'd never mentioned it. I felt the itch start then. The kind that lives behind your ribs. Not pain. Not yet. Just a nagging, crawling suspicion you can't scratch. When Jason came home that night, he was upbeat. Playful, even. Tossed his jacket over the chair, kissed my temple, talked about how the client trip was going to be nothing but meetings and bad coffee. Wish you could come, he added absently, pouring wine. It was the kind of line that was meant to sound sweet. But it wasn't an invitation. Just something people say. I sipped my wine and nodded. Maybe next time. He smiled. But again, it wasn't the smile I knew. It was the one Clara probably knew by now. Friday morning, he packed early. 2 button-downs, his laptop, charger, cologne. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching him fold clothes he never folded. You packed cologne? I asked lightly, teasing. Jason laughed. Just in case I have to charm the client. Is the client Clara? He stopped folding. Just for a second. But that second lasted long enough. Funny, he said, not laughing this time. Wasn't trying to be. He turned, looked at me. Emily. Come on. I didn't say anything. Just shrugged, turned away. I hated the way my voice trembled when I was trying to sound calm. So I said nothing else. After he left, the apartment felt too still. Like it was waiting for something. Or mourning something that hadn't happened yet. I cleaned. Scrubbed the kitchen. Organized the fridge. Watered plants that didn't need it. It wasn't about the apartment. It was about the silence. I needed noise. Movement. That afternoon, I went for a walk, no destination in mind, just trying to shake the feeling. That's when I saw him. Luke. He was standing in line at the coffee shop on Mercer, the one we used to go to in college. I almost walked past. Almost kept going. But something made me stop. Luke? He turned, did a double take, then smiled. That smile, warm, familiar, a little crooked like it didn't know how to be anything else. Emily? We hadn't spoken in years. Not since that night. The one where everything almost changed, but didn't. We sat outside. Coffee between us. Laughter, too. The kind that doesn't belong to strangers. He asked about Jason. I gave safe answers. He nodded like he already knew there was more. Then he said, "You look tired." I laughed. Thanks. No, I mean it in the way someone looks when they've been pretending too long. I didn't know what to say to that. But something inside me cracked. We talked for an hour. Maybe more. About the past, about nothing. About how we'd both become versions of ourselves we hadn't expected. When we said goodbye, he hugged me. Just a hug. But it felt like something real. As I walked home, I kept hearing his words. You look tired. He wasn't wrong. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing how much I missed being seen. Saturday morning came like any other. Sunlight creeping through the blinds, coffee brewing, my phone buzzing with a made-it-safe text from Jason. I stared at it a little too long. He hadn't added a heart or an emoji. That was new. Busy day ahead, he wrote. Love you. I didn't reply right away. I told myself not to read into things. But by now, that was like telling a drowning woman to ignore the water. I left my phone on the counter and opened the windows. Fresh air helped me think. Except, it didn't. It just made the quiet louder. By noon, I was at the bookstore down on 4th, the one where nobody bothers you and the tea tastes like paper. I wasn't reading. Just pretending. That's when I heard his voice again. Luke. Are you following me, or do we just have the same idea of hiding places? He stood there with a cup of tea, looking almost sheepish. I smiled, but it wasn't polite. It was real. Apparently we still orbit the same corners of the city, I said. He sat across from me without asking. We fell into conversation like no time had passed. Easy. Natural. Unforced. There was no pretending with Luke. At one point, I told him about the trip. The client meeting. The colleague Jason had never mentioned. Luke didn't interrupt. He just listened. Really listened. And then, he asked the question no one had asked me in a long time. What do you want? I blinked. What? You're talking about Jason and Clara and the weird vibe and the silence between you, but what do you want, Emily? I didn't have an answer. Not one I could say out loud. He smiled, gently. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't care how long you ignore it. It waits. When I got home, I stood in the doorway for a while, key still in hand, like I wasn't sure whether I belonged there anymore. I wandered into Jason's office. Something I hadn't done in weeks. He usually kept the door slightly closed, not locked, just less open than it used to be. I looked around. Nothing seemed out of place. Then I noticed the file on his desk, an itinerary. I picked it up. The hotel name jumped out first. 2 rooms booked under the same reservation. Adjacent. But only one room had a guest name listed, Clara Jennings. My chest tightened. Could mean anything. Could mean nothing. But I already knew what it meant. Later that night, after 2 glasses of wine and an hour of pacing, I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened his laptop. I didn't know the password at first. Then I remembered the joke he always made about our anniversary, 0621. It worked. I didn't go digging. Just clicked on his browser history. And there it was. Clara Jennings, her social media, her LinkedIn, a shared Google Doc titled Budget Forecast Proposal, Jason and Clara. Nothing incriminating. Just the pattern. The frequency. The digital intimacy. People don't spend this much time with someone unless they're building something. And not just PowerPoint decks. I closed the laptop gently. Like it might explode. Then I sat on the couch, turned on the TV, and watched half an episode of some cooking show I didn't care about. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Tired of being careful with my thoughts. Tired of shrinking my instincts to fit someone else's comfort. That night, Luke texted. Hope today didn't feel too heavy. Just wanted to say it was good to see you again. I stared at the message for a while. Then I replied. You too. You asked what I want. I don't know yet. But I know what I don't want. There was a long pause. Then his response. That's a start. I went to bed alone. Jason was hours away, maybe sharing laughs over dinner, maybe saying her name the way he used to say mine. And I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. No answers yet. But a steady peeling back of lies, his, and mine. The truth wasn't loud. It was quiet. But it was coming. Sunday morning was always ours. We used to make pancakes. Trade sections of the newspaper. Jason would read the headlines aloud in a bad British accent, and I'd pretend to be annoyed. But not today. Today I woke to silence and a cold spot on the bed where he should have been. His side of the bed still smelled like his cologne. I pulled the sheet closer around me like it might explain something. It didn't. I stared at the ceiling again, but this time I wasn't thinking about Clara. I was thinking about me. The version of myself I'd buried beneath marriage vows and compromise. The one who used to know what she wanted, who would have walked out at the first sign of lies, not stayed hoping they were mistakes. The version of me who didn't ask for proof because her gut was enough. I missed her. That afternoon, Jason called. Hey, he said, too bright. Just checking in. Heading out from the retreat soon. Did it go well? Yeah. Smooth. Clara nailed the pitch. There it was again, her name, casually, like we were all in this together. I kept my voice level. Good. When are you back? Couple hours. Might grab dinner on the way. With Clara? A pause. Barely a beat. Yeah. Just something quick before we hit traffic. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Okay. Drive safe. We hung up. I stared at my phone. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just sat there. Still. Waiting for the thing I already knew to show itself. It came that night. Jason got home around 10. Kissed me on the cheek. Smelled faintly of wine. I'm exhausted, he said, tossing his bag by the door. Long day. He took a shower. I sat on the couch. TV off. Just listening to the water run. When he came out, towel around his waist, I asked casually, "Can I borrow your phone?" He hesitated. Just for a second. But it was all I needed. Mine's dead, I said. Just need to check something. He handed it over with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sure. I opened it, pretending I was looking something up. Then I tapped into his messages. Not the app. The search bar. I typed Clara. Up came a thread. Hundreds of messages. It wasn't overt. No sexts. No I love you. But it was all there, in jokes, late-night thoughts, memes only they shared. A shared language I wasn't part of. And then one message, from 2 nights ago. I wish you were in this bed instead. From Jason. I didn't make a sound. Didn't gasp or cry. I just scrolled. Let it wash over me like cold water. When I handed him back the phone, he didn't look me in the eye. He knew. I said nothing. Just went to bed. The next morning, I woke early. Made coffee. Packed a small bag. Not to leave, not yet, but because movement felt necessary. I needed to remind myself I could still act. Still choose. At noon, I met Luke again. I didn't plan it that way. I just found myself walking toward that same bookstore. He was there, like he knew. When he saw me, his expression softened. No questions. We walked to the river and sat on a bench watching the water move. After a while, I spoke. I found the messages. Luke didn't say anything. Just waited. He's been sleeping with her, I said. I don't need a confession. I know. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry, Em. I nodded too. The wind picked up, tugging at my hair, and I let it. I used to think knowing would destroy me, I said. But it didn't. It clarified everything. Luke looked at me. So what now? I don't know. But I did. And it was the first time in months that I felt like I wasn't pretending. That night, I went home. Jason was in the kitchen, making pasta. Like it was just another Monday. Hey babe, he said. You okay? I looked at him, really looked. I know about Clara. Silence. He set down the spoon. Slowly. Like he'd just realized the stove was hot. Emily. You don't have to explain. He opened his mouth, then closed it. I just wanted you to know I'm not blind, I said. Or stupid. Or quiet because I'm weak. I walked past him, into the bedroom. Closed the door. And started writing the end of us. The next morning was ordinary. Too ordinary. Jason made coffee. Poured 2 mugs. Asked if I wanted almond milk. The same question he asked every Tuesday for the last 4 years. I didn't answer. He sat across from me, watched me stir the coffee I wasn't drinking. I messed up, he finally said. His voice was quiet. Measured. Practiced. I looked up. You think this is about a mistake? He flinched, just slightly. Then nodded. I crossed a line. But it wasn't. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. You never do, I said. That's the thing about people like you. The fire's always an accident, but the match was in your hand. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, face drawn. I swear, I never meant to hurt you. Clara, it wasn't about love or anything like that. I let the words hang between us. He waited for something, anger, tears, forgiveness. Anything. But I just sat there, calm. Maybe too calm. You don't get to decide what it meant, I said. You don't get to stand in this kitchen, drink this coffee, and pretend you tripped into infidelity. Jason looked away. It wasn't supposed to be real. But it was, I said. Every lie you told, every secret you kept, it was real. He nodded, slowly. I'll end it. I stood. You already did. That day, I called in sick. Took a walk to nowhere in particular. Let the city swallow me up. I walked past couples holding hands. A little boy crying over spilled ice cream. A man smoking on the curb like he'd lost something important. And I thought, this is what endings look like. Not fire and screaming. Just a woman walking home with nothing in her hands but her own name. That evening, I pulled our suitcase from the closet. The one we used for our honeymoon. Funny. How objects outlive the people who carry them. Jason watched from the doorway. He didn't stop me. Didn't speak. He just watched as I packed the essentials. Clothes. Documents. A photo of my mother, the one thing in this apartment that ever felt like mine. Where will you go? He asked. Somewhere that doesn't smell like regret. He nodded. Didn't ask for more. Didn't deserve it. Before I left, I stood in the doorway. Looked at the place we called home. The couch we laughed on. The kitchen we danced in. The bed he betrayed me in. And I felt something unexpected. Not grief. Relief. Because clarity doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence. And the quiet certainty that this is no longer where you belong. I stayed at a hotel that night. Slept like I hadn't in months. No footsteps outside the door. No late-night texts to another woman. Just stillness. And space. In the morning, I woke to a message from Luke. Hey. I don't know where you are or what happened. But if you need anything, coffee, silence, a place to scream, I'm here. I stared at that message for a long time. Not because I didn't believe him. But because, for the first time in years, I believed I could choose who I let in. Not out of fear. But out of truth. And that changes everything. The first thing I noticed after leaving was how quiet my phone became. No more Jason updates. No running late texts. No pointless check-ins that pretended to be connection. Silence, the kind I used to fear, now felt like air. The hotel room was basic. Beige walls, scratchy sheets, a lamp that flickered when you touched the switch wrong. But it was mine for the moment, and that was enough. I didn't cry. Not once. That surprised me. What came instead was something colder, the realization that I'd spent the last year ignoring myself in favor of keeping the story intact. And I wasn't interested in the story anymore. Jason called the second night. I let it ring. Then he texted. Jason, we need to talk. Please. Let me explain. Explain what? That I'd been right all along? That my instincts, the ones I'd choked down for months, had been sharper than his lies? I turned the phone face down and left it there. The next day, I went back to the apartment. Not for him. For me. He wasn't there. Good. I walked through the rooms like a stranger. Took down the framed photos, packed what was mine. Left behind the throw blanket Clara gave us last Christmas. It always smelled like her perfume. The closet was still half his. His side too neat. Always had been. But on the shelf above, I found it, a small box I hadn't seen before. Inside were notes. Handwritten. From Clara. Nothing graphic. Just, intimate. I love the way you looked at me today. Do you think she knows? Can we stop pretending? I sat on the bed with the box in my lap. And for the first time I wasn't angry. I was done. I didn't take the box. I didn't destroy it. I left it on the kitchen table with a post-it. Now you don't have to explain. I stopped by my friend Kira's place after that. She opened the door, took one look at me, and said, "Took you long enough." I smiled for the first time in days. She made tea. I sat on her couch and told her everything. Every detail. The rooftop party. Clara. The texts. The suitcase. When I finished, she looked at me for a long moment. "You stayed longer than I would've," she said. "But you also walked out stronger than most." We clinked mugs like it meant something. It did. That night, Luke texted again. "Still here. Still quiet if you need it." I typed out a reply, deleted it, then started again. "Let's get coffee." No pressure. Just two people who used to mean something. He responded a minute later. "We still do." I didn't know what was next. Didn't know if Luke and I were rewriting something or just remembering it. Didn't know where I'd live or how long the silence would last. But I knew one thing. I was no longer waiting for someone else to rescue me from the life I'd built around lies. I was burning the map. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of getting lost. Luke and I met on a Wednesday. Same coffee shop, different weather. Rain this time, the kind that slicks the streets and makes the city feel like it's wrapped in wax paper. He was already there, sitting by the window with 2 cups. One was for me. Black, no sugar. He remembered. "Hey," I said, pulling off my coat. "Hey," he echoed. No smile. Just something quieter. Like understanding. We didn't talk about Jason. Not at first. We talked about the years between, how he moved back from Portland, started freelancing again, how I switched firms last fall and never told anyone. There was no edge to the conversation. Just pauses where the hurt used to live. After a while, he asked, "Are you okay?" It was the question everyone else had texted. But when he said it, it didn't feel like a box to check. It felt like permission to be honest. "I think so," I said. "But it's strange. I keep expecting the breakdown. The big sobbing collapse. But it's not coming." Luke sipped his coffee. "Maybe it already came." Quietly. I looked at him. Or maybe I spent so long pretending I was happy, the real pain doesn't even know where to land. He nodded, slow. "That sounds like you." I didn't take offense. I took the truth. We walked after. Rain still coming down, but soft now. The city glowed under it, storefront lights bleeding into puddles. He held an umbrella over both of us. Our arms touched once. Neither of us moved away. "You know," he said, "I always wondered." Wondered what? If we'd have made it. Back then. If we hadn't screwed it up. I glanced at him. We didn't screw it up. We just didn't finish it. He smiled, small and real. "That sounds like you." We walked a while longer. Didn't say much. But something settled between us, not a promise, not yet. Just space. And the possibility of something honest growing in it. That night, I slept at Kira's again. Her guest room smelled like lavender and fresh paint. She'd offered it before I even asked. Jason texted while I was brushing my teeth. "Jason, can we talk?" "Just once." "I'll come to you." I stared at the screen. Then typed. "There's nothing left to say." "Not that you haven't already said to her." He replied. "Jason, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this." I didn't reply. Because I wasn't angry. I just wasn't his anymore. The next day, I started looking at apartments. Tiny places. Studio walk-ups with creaky floors and bad water pressure. But they were mine. I could already picture where the books would go. Kira came with me to the first showing. She joked about the radiator that hissed like a snake and said, "Perfect, it'll keep the wrong men away." We laughed harder than we should have. It felt good. Luke texted again that night. "Dinner next week?" I stared at the message, feeling a strange warmth in my chest, not butterflies, not hope. Something steadier. I typed back. "Yeah. Let's rewrite something." He replied with a single word. Together. I didn't know what that meant. Not yet. But it wasn't about rushing into love. It was about building something on clean ground, no lies, no pretending, no guilt. Just two people meeting again after the dust had settled. And maybe, just maybe, finding a beginning inside the wreckage. I moved out officially on a Sunday. Jason wasn't there. He'd offered to be, left a note on the counter that said, "If you change your mind, I'm just a call away." I didn't. Kira helped me load the boxes. We didn't speak much, just worked. Efficient, focused, like pulling a tooth that's already loose. You don't mourn the pain. You just want it gone. The apartment was quiet when I locked the door for the last time. Not heavy, not sad. Just still. I didn't say goodbye to the space. Didn't need to. I'd already said goodbye to the life inside it. My new place was a third-floor walk-up in Queens. Tiny kitchen, cracked tiles in the bathroom, and a view of someone else's fire escape. But it had good light in the morning, and enough quiet to think. The first night, I sat cross-legged on the floor with takeout and a single fork. I didn't toast to anything. Didn't cry. I just ate. In peace. Sometimes peace looks like noodles in a plastic container on the floor of your life, and nothing else. And that's enough. Midweek, Jason sent one more message. Jason, just one question. Was there someone else? I stared at it, stunned by the audacity. Not how are you or do you need anything, but was there someone else? As if betrayal has to be balanced. As if my leaving only made sense if someone was waiting to catch me. I didn't answer. He didn't deserve one. But if I had, I would have said this. There wasn't someone else. There was just me. And for once, I chose her. That Friday, Luke and I had dinner. It wasn't a date. Not yet. Just food, conversation, and a bottle of wine that neither of us could open properly. He showed up with flowers, not roses, but wildflowers. Like something picked, not bought. I didn't know what to do with them, so I stuck them in a water glass and left them on the windowsill. We talked for hours. About everything but the obvious. Until dessert, when he finally said, "You seem lighter." I nodded. I feel it. I think for a while, I didn't realize how much weight I was carrying just trying to hold something together that wanted to fall apart. He looked at me. Not the way Jason used to, not like I was a puzzle to fix or a story to explain. Just looked. Like I was enough just sitting there. You don't owe anyone your silence, he said. I know. I did know. For the first time, I wasn't biting my tongue to keep peace. I was quiet because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Later that night, he walked me to my door. Didn't ask to come up. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, like he was unsure what came next. I leaned against the doorframe. "This is nice," I said. "It is." We stood in the silence for a moment. Then he said, "Whatever this is, whatever it becomes, I just want you to know I'm not going anywhere." I nodded, a small smile at the corner of my mouth. "I'm not either." We didn't kiss. That wasn't the point. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes, it walks with you to the door and waits. Back inside, I found the flowers still on the sill, leaning toward the light. They weren't perfect. They didn't need to be. They just needed water. And time. Just like me. A week passed. Then two. Time didn't sprint forward like it does in movies. It walked. Steady. Unforgiving. But I welcomed every step of it. I unpacked slowly. Found comfort in small routines, washing a single coffee mug, folding one blanket, lighting a candle at night just because I liked the scent. Some nights, I sat on the windowsill with my knees pulled up, watching the city breathe beneath me. Not waiting for anything. Just learning how to exist without permission. Jason didn't text again. Not after that last message. I imagined him still in the old apartment, passing through it like a ghost. Maybe Clara was there now. Maybe not. I didn't care. That story no longer needed a villain. I'd already walked off its pages. Kira came by one Saturday with wine and bad gossip. She flopped onto my tiny couch, scanned the place, and said, "You look good here." "Here?" She shrugged. "Not just the apartment. You've got this stillness. Not dead. Just centered." I didn't say anything. Just smiled. Stillness didn't used to feel safe. Now it felt earned. Luke and I started seeing each other once or twice a week. We didn't call it anything. No labels. No expectations. Just two people with shared history and a growing present. One night after dinner, we sat on the train together, heading toward his stop. The car was mostly empty. The world outside was black glass, reflecting versions of ourselves back at us. He turned to me. "I keep thinking about us," he said quietly. I didn't look at him. Just kept watching the window. "What about us? How we never got it right." "Not back then." I nodded. "We were kids trying to wear adult skin." He laughed. "Yeah. We fumbled it hard." A pause. Then, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't?" "Sometimes," I said. "But I think we had to break back then, so we could meet again without pretending." He looked at me for a long second. Then he took my hand. Not like he was claiming it. Just holding space. And I let him. The next morning, I opened my inbox and saw it. A message from Jason. No subject. Just a line in the body. "Jason, Clara and I are over. I'm sorry. I hope you find what I couldn't give you." I read it twice. Then again. Not because it hurt. But because it didn't. He'd finally said it. Too late. Too distant. Too irrelevant. I didn't reply. There's nothing to say when a bridge has already burned and all you've got left is your own road. That afternoon, Luke came over. We sat on the floor, eating takeout straight from the boxes. A movie played in the background, but neither of us watched it. At one point, he leaned back against the wall and looked at me like he'd known me his whole life. Maybe he had. "You know," he said, "I don't want to rush anything. But I think I'm falling in love with you again." I didn't answer right away. Then I leaned in, rested my head on his shoulder, and said the simplest truth I knew. "Let's not rush." He nodded. "Slow's good." We sat there in the stillness, not needing more. Not chasing a future. Just honoring a present we finally knew how to hold. There wasn't a moment where it all clicked. No epiphany. No sweeping soundtrack. Just a string of mornings where I woke up and didn't miss him. Not his voice. Not the smell of his shampoo. Not the hollow rituals we used to call love. I'd left Jason, but it took time to leave the version of myself who needed him. She lingered a while. Quiet. Watching. Wanting to believe there was still something salvageable. But eventually, even she walked away. It was a gray morning when I signed the final papers. Nothing dramatic. A few signatures. A notarized stamp. The sound of paper sliding across a desk. The clerk didn't ask questions. Just processed the forms, nodded once, and handed me the final copy. "You're all set," she said. I wasn't sure what that meant. But I smiled anyway. On the way out, I stopped by a small park near the courthouse. Sat on a bench under a tree just starting to turn for fall. A breeze rustled the leaves, and for a second, it felt like they were whispering something only I could hear. Not forgiveness. Not farewell. Just freedom. That night, I had dinner with Luke. It was his turn to cook. He made something too spicy, burned the rice, laughed so hard he nearly dropped the pan. I sat on the stool at the kitchen counter, watching him move, and something inside me settled. He wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But there was space between us, space for silence, space for breath, space for truth. After dinner, we sat on the balcony of his apartment. 2 chairs, 1 blanket, 1 glass of wine passed back and forth between us. He didn't ask about the divorce papers. I didn't bring them up. Because he knew, without words, that this wasn't a rebound. It was a return. Not to him. But to myself. Later, curled against him in the dark, he whispered. Do you regret it? I knew what he meant. I thought about Jason. About Clara. About the years I spent editing myself for someone who saw me as convenient instead of real. And then I thought about the day I packed that suitcase. The post-it I left on the kitchen table. The way my own name felt when I finally said it without apology. No, I said. Not even a little. He kissed my forehead. Not like a promise. But like a recognition. Some endings aren't explosions. They're quiet exits, gently closing the door behind you. Some beginnings aren't confessions. They're eye contact. Shared silence. A breath held, and released. I didn't leave because I was angry. I left because I was finally ready to choose. Not survival. Not obligation. Not fear of starting over. But myself. And that made all the difference.